Hey there, thanks for joining our tour today. I'll be your guide, Jacob, and we'll be going on our company's famed Easter Procession tour. Though we can still see past as something that is so far and so distant from us, it's not always all that different. Though we'll be taking a look at the history of an empire that hasn't existed for over 570 years, and we'll be looking at how a procession was done by an emperor from over 1,000 years ago, we can still see the same holiday, Easter, which so many people now celebrate to this day. Now, I have bad news. There is not going to be any chocolate on this tour, but after the fact, I can give you a good recommendation for a place to get some chocolate. So, as I mentioned, this tour is centered around some of the Easter processions that were described by Emperor Constantine VII, who ruled the Roman Empire from 913 to 959 current era. We are lucky to have his Book of Ceremonies, which describes many celebratory practices in the city. Though these processions are around over 1,000 years old, we will look at the modern city of Istanbul to see some old Roman ruins and explore mosques to kind of look at how this procession would have happened and to see some key sites. Now, please note that anytime I mention any part of this Easter celebration, any of the things that was done on this procession, I'm paraphrasing directly from the mentioned Book of Ceremonies written by Constantine VII. So as we start our tour here in the site where 565 years ago, back in 1463, you would have found the Church of the Holy Apostles. Now though, after the changing of hands of the empires and over a millennium of time, there's been the rise and the fall of the Ottomans as well. We stand here at the site of Fatih Mosque, also known as the Conqueror's Mosque in English. Though the mosque was built originally in the late 15th century, it was rebuilt in the 18th century after an earthquake destroyed it. Thanks to IstanbulTourStudio.com for that fact. That means that multiple mosques were built over the site of the old Church of the Holy Apostles. In our tour, though, we'll be focusing on the Roman history, but the Ottoman history tour is another one that we offer. I highly recommend it. So, as Britannica claims, the Church of the Holy Apostles was a church whose building was started by Constantine I, the namesake and founder of the Old City, but was finished by his son Constantine II. It was a church that was dedicated to the 12 apostles of Jesus, and it was aimed to house a collection of holy relics from these 12 apostles. Even though their goal was to get relics from all 12, this was a failure, and they only had one apostolic relic and two non-apostolic relics. I guess finding old body parts is pretty difficult then, eh? So, in addition to this being a place of worship in the past, it was also meant to be a repository for these relics. The old church served an important role for also being a place of burial for the emperors at the same time. This includes Constantine I. So, now, in relation to the tour, this is one of the sites of the processions where the procession would start from. So to give a bit of context to this, during the Roman days of Constantinople, there were two major factions which were represented as sports teams, the Blues and the Greens. These two factions would be cheered and booed during the great chariot races in the Hippodrome. These teams, though, due to popular support and being in a place of great attention and influence, the Hippodrome, ended up getting involved with influencing politics in the empire. This even led to the Nika riots of the 500s, which led to massive riots and political upheaval that damaged the Hagia Sophia. Now, if you ever want to find out more about these riots, I would recommend you read The Nika Riots, A Reappraisal by Geoffrey Greatorex, as is where I got my information from. However, in our context, these sports teams also participated in the Easter ceremonies. During Easter, under Constantine VII, you would see a procession that the instructor of the faction of the Greens had to walk while reciting verses. They would start here and walk as far as the door of the Great Palace, which is going to be our next stop here. Let's hop on a bus and head over there. Hey all, I hope this mic on the shuttle here is working. On the shuttle ride, let me quickly talk to you about the importance of these processions in Constantinople and the Roman Empire just as a whole at the time. These processions were not just an act of religious piety, but were also very important for the emperor to perform for multiple political reasons. So, the Roman emperors in Constantinople, it was very important for them to be seen publicly. The citizens would not like always an emperor who's very closed off and distant from the citizens. It almost makes them feel like they're not seen and not heard, as one could imagine. So, by hosting these processions, they not just were able to kind of be seen in public, but they were seen kind of participating with the public. One way that this would happen is that with these processions, there would be bags that were carried, and citizens could kind of drop these requests into a bag, almost like a little suggestion box at work or something, but on a grander scale. So, at the same time, though, some historians argue that this was important for shaping communal identity in the city. One such historian, Vicky Manolopoulou, in her article, Processions in Byzantine Constantinople, the evidence from the Dresden A104, Manolopoulou has an excellent analysis of how these helped to cement the city as a holy place, and also the emperor as a ruler of this holy place as a representative of God on earth. And so kind of by shaping the idea of the city and its identity around the emperor and the city being a holy place, these processions, these public feats for celebration, help to really influence them about the holy nature of the city and the emperor. Here we are. After this quick 13-minute shuttle ride, we arrive here at the site of the old Roman palace ruins. Here once stood the great imperial palace of the entire Roman Empire, built by Constantine I. Here once stood before Constantinople, the Greek city-state of Byzantion, but Constantine moved the capital of Rome to this central point and established a new city. He called it New Rome, but the moniker of Constantinople stuck, named after, as I mentioned, Constantine himself. This location here was the center of power in the empire. This is when the border stretched all the way from England in the north, Portugal and Morocco in the west, Azerbaijan in the east, and even through parts of Egypt down the Nile in the south. Though only ruins now stand in this position, this used to be a large, massive palace of low-rise buildings that connected, sort of interconnected palace. Instead of one grand building, the palace was more a complex of multiple buildings. Here you could find workers, people in the politics, and all sorts of people of mixed class and representation here. Even those going to Hagia Sophia for church. At the time, you could also enjoy sports nearby at the Hippodrome. This was the place to be in the city, and quite possibly the world. Now, we start our main part of the tour here, as this is where the core and the true start of the Easter procession was. The day before Easter Sunday, the senior officials of the palace would go and meet in the so-called Golden Hall, the main reception area of the imperial palace. Here, they would give advice to the emperor or empress, whoever was ruling at the time, to host a feast. The servants would then be given orders by the emperor to conduct a procession the following day. They would then go out and spread the news amongst the rest of the upper-ranked people, the ecclesiastical, military, and elsewise, to prepare for this procession. The next day, the emperor would awaken, pray, and get clothed in their special gold-bordered clothes. From here, they would start the procession to our next stop, the Church of Theotokos, Chokolopreta. Once you are all done exploring the ruins here, we'll gather here at, let me check my watch, 10:30, and we'll walk to our next destination around the corner. So have fun. I'll be around here. If you have any questions, I'm going to do my best to help you out and give you any more historical facts that you guys want. Okay, guys, now we're going to be heading to our next stop here. You can see as we walk by, right here is Hagia Sophia. So you can imagine kind of the way that this was all placed, with Hagia Sophia being part of this greater imperial complex, the building and the church right beside each other. So we're just going to go down the street here and to the right, and we'll find our next location. Here we are. This is not quite as popular and well-renowned as Hagia Sophia itself. This is the Zeynep Sultan Mosque. This mosque, similar to the one we started at earlier, is built on top of an old Roman Christian church. The church would have been found here was called the Church of Theotokos Chokolopreton. This church would have been where the ruler and his procession would have walked to after the emperor finished his morning prayer. This church was dedicated to the Virgin Mary and, despite its small size at the time, was a very important place. Previously, I mentioned the Nika riots. So during those riots, Hagia Sophia was damaged, and so the church that once stood here was actually the seat of the Patriarch of Constantinople while Hagia Sophia was being repaired. So a great place of religious importance. Here, the emperor, during the Easter procession, would place a candle and give thanks to God. This would be repeated again in an adjoining chapel. This practice of giving prayer and giving thanks in the chapel and placing a candle would have happened at multiple different churches throughout the city. Now, even though we're just standing outside this mosque, we have a little special surprise and feature for you here on the Easter procession tour. So if you follow me around the corner here, the hotel behind it, the Zeynep Sultan Hotel, named after the mosque, actually has a staircase down to an old basement of the church that used to stand here. We have a close relationship with the owners and an agreement, so I'll talk to the reception and they'll let us in and down. So as we walk down the stone staircase, you can see it's quite small. Sorry about anybody with claustrophobia. But you can see as we descend into the main part here, brick pillars and walls. And if you look up, not just can you see the arches, but you can see some frescoes, faded sadly, but still present on this roof. So I'm going to give you guys here 10 minutes to explore this basement, take some photos, and we'll meet up here. Give me, let's see, 11 o'clock. Meet up at 11 o'clock, and we'll head out to our next stop. There we are. I hope you guys are okay not bringing your jackets into that basement. Normally quite warm around here, except when you're underground, as you can imagine. So now we'll walk towards the Million Stone. The stone is really just a remnant of what used to be a greater monument, the Million. But alas, all we have left after this time is some ruins, some stones from it. So, as we approach here, this is it. This stone dates back to the 3rd century. This is before the city was called Istanbul or even Constantinople. This is still when it was Byzantion. So, in Raymond Janin's book, Constantinople Byzantine, Développement urbain et répertoire topographique, Janin describes the Million as a dome structure with 4 arches supporting it. It was once part of a much larger thing than just a little column here. And this role was a kind of mile zero in the east of the empire. So, that being, this was a place where distances were measured out from. As it kind of measured to other parts of what we consider Turkey or Greece, you could measure how far it was from the Million. So, other parts of this once great and important structure are around the city as well. This part is only just one of 3 in the city, but the other ones are a bit farther out for the tour, but you can see them on a couple of our other ones here. Now, this old stone was the place of the first reception after the processions took place during Easter. Here, figures from different Roman teams, the blues and the greens, but also the lesser teams at the time of the whites and the reds, would all meet up. Now, if you remember back when we were at the Fatih Mosque, the members of the Greens who participated in the procession would have to walk all the way from there to here. Even though it's only a 13-minute drive or so nowadays, at the time, saying the different verses and walking, it was one of the longer parts of the processions, one of the longer distances. So, after all the teams arrived, they would head to the entrance of the Imperial Palace. From there, they'd go to Hagia Sophia, as we will on our last stop here. So, let's get to the big exciting thing, instead of just standing outside looking at this little dinky stone with a lot of historical importance. So, as I mentioned earlier, while we were on the shuttle, these processions were important for the emperors and served political roles commonly. So, one such example of a political role of the procession can be seen if you look at Leo VI. So, the historian Nathan Leadholm, in his article, Transforming the Religious Landscape, Emperor Leo VI and his struggle for supremacy over the church, we can see that Leadholm argues that Leo used the processions as a way to legitimize his role after his claim to the throne came from some violent means. It was not uncommon at the time for the emperor to have conquered the city. It could happen in multiple different ways. It wasn't a bloodline of sorts. It could be conquered. It could be elected by a church official. Multiple different ways could lead to a new emperor being instated. So, after Leo VI was uncomfortable with his position, to help legitimize his claim to the throne and help to be seen as a better emperor, he would participate in these processions. It makes sense, because after all, even nowadays, we have certain expectations for what politicians should and shouldn't do, what they should be doing during potential important days such as Canada Day back in Canada or the 4th of July in America. In the same way, important for the emperors to do that. But instead of maybe receiving some flack on social media for bad spending, if an emperor messed up, it could be much more violent, such as a weapon to the neck. Now, as we approach the mosque, let us enjoy its majesty. Hagia Sophia is one of the great wonders of the world. I'm sure that this magnificent mosque was one of the things on your list when you came here to Turkey. One of the big things that everyone wants to see. So, right now on our tour, we can only go to the second floor. But don't worry, the tickets were included in your tour costs already. If any of you on this tour are either Muslim or Turkish citizens, I mean, if you are a Turkish citizen, I would be surprised you're on this tour, but nonetheless, you could actually enter the first floor, the main part of the mosque, for free. If you have this chance ever, or if rules and regulations change in the future, I implore you to take that chance. Instead, though, as a group, we can access the second floor and see the Roman mosaics on the roof. Okay, now that we've gotten through security and into the complex, let me tell you some of the history here. Back in Roman times, this mosque, which would have been a church at the time, was part of the imperial palace complex. Back when it was built, it was the largest Christian church in the world. Its dome, which was a huge selling feature, actually had a lot of problems, though. Back until the time of Justinian, in the 6th century, the dome would commonly actually collapse. Lucky for us here, with modern engineering and with some of the changes Justinian did, we are safe from the roof falling in now. So, Hagia Sophia was a place that was crucial for worship for Christians, but also served as a mark for power. It showed the power and the strength of the city due to its grand size and grand domes. At times, it was even a very important place for politics directly. As mentioned before, emperors could get crowned in many different ways. At times, an emperor would be ordained by a patriarch of the church, and so they'd have the coronation right here in this mosque. This mosque, as you can imagine, also played a large part in the Easter ceremonies. The people from the different colors of teams, the emperor, and anyone else who participated in the processions would all gather here after they finished the processions on Easter Sunday. This place was kind of the end of the ceremony before the feasting ceremonies would begin. So, the crown of the ruler would be removed, and all who were gathered there would give thanks and pray here in this church. Now, for this final spot, let me give a direct quote from Constantine VII directly, as translated in English. The rulers have their crown removed by the praepositori and go into the church of the Lord, which is Hagia Sophia, and with triple obedience and with candles they give thanks to God. From here, they go into the sacred palace, which is the grand palace we went to earlier, with a kublekion entering with them, and in the Christokilos, they are cheered, as previously described. Now, I implore you all to enjoy these Roman mosaics and the beauty of the mosque. This is such an important place, not just in history, but for various different religions. So, if any of you need any advice or places to eat or any little things to do in the city, come find me here. I'll be around for probably about half an hour till I head out to my next tour. It's been an absolute pleasure leading you guys here. I hope you learned something new, especially you there, the man with the Serbian accent. And I hope to see you around for another tour another day. Thank you very much. I've been Jacob, and I'll be around.